need one of them boards with the
the
cut signs.
Right, can I go?
Yeah, you can go.
Right, what's happening, YouTube? Welcome to my new channel. Some of you will know I had a channel before that was quite successful, talking to the young generation of not glamorizing crime. That was a life that I'd been through on a very, very, very dangerous level. But God, Lord Jesus Christ, our Saviour, took me out of it. He was the only person that could have took me out of it, because I was trying to do it on my own, and we are not capable of doing anything without our Lord and Saviour Jesus Christ. So for this first episode, I thought we'll do something quite fun, something quite interactive. So my wife's compiled quite a few questions that I get quite often since I've given my life to Christ, or back to Christ, and obviously people close to me have seen a dramatic change. So yeah, we're going to start off with a Q&A, basically, to give you an insight of where I've been, where I am, and where God is using me to go. So yeah, without any further ado, my wife's behind the light, and
are you ready?
let's see where this goes.
Right, okay, so I've got a list of questions for you.
Okay.
And you're going to answer them very honestly.
I will answer them.
You're very honest.
Very honestly.
Right, okay, so my first question for you is, how old was you when you first was introduced to God or went to church?
So, I'd say I was 5, maybe. That's when my dad not long come out of prison, to be fair, and one of his friends, I think, or a couple of his friends that was involved in a life of crime like he was, they ended up going to a church, and they told him to come along. He went, and obviously God spoke to him, and he just couldn't wait to get baptized, and that was the beginning of our journey going to a church when we was young. Yeah.
Okie dokie. And where did you grow up?
So I grew up in an area called Peckham in South East London. Yeah, I mean, it's been on the media enough over the years. It wasn't a safe place to live.
I was going to say Peckham's got its reputation for being...
Yeah, it's got a very bad reputation. Now, obviously, it's being gentrified. It's a lot safer. But when I grew up there, it was gang violence, gang crime, an awful lot of stabbings, awful lot of robberies, obviously shootings. So yeah, it wasn't the safest place to grow up, wasn't the best environment to get inspiration, etc.
Would you say it's quite hard living in an area like that, or like living, for example, like on a council estate or from a not so well-off area? It's hard to stay away from like crime, and do you think there's a lot of opportunities for children that grow up in them areas?
I mean, one thing I've never done, and I'll never make excuses for people's choices as they get to an adult, because I think, you know, unless we're mentally impaired, we know right from wrong. And growing up in an area like that, in the council estates and stuff, like, obviously, you know right and wrong because you see them wrong mostly more than you see right. So, but at the same time, is it harder? 100%. Is it more difficult? 100%, because we're taught, we're born into a society where ambition is not a thing. People talk a lot about where they'd want to be, but the sort of people you aspire to when you're in an area like that is the people driving around the area, the older lot in their flash cars and their nice watches and cash out their pocket. And to be fair, unfortunately, 9 out of 10 of them were drug dealers, or you get the odd one that made it in football. So obviously, growing up with that, you're told that you're not good enough. Society tells you you're not good enough. You can't get out of it. Like, you haven't got the tools. You don't have the tools that you'd get in a private school, for example, that you'd get in a normal school in an area of poverty. You haven't got them tools. So, you know, growing up poor, if you got people offering you, oh, you know, we'll give you 50 quid today to go down there and you're 13 years old, that's life-changing money to a 13-year-old in a cancer estate when you're living on the dole. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely harder, 100% harder, yeah.
Okay, and what was your childhood like growing up?
Um, yeah, my childhood was hard for me and my brother. Very difficult. I think we were shown all the love in the world, that's for sure. But obviously, mum and dad were only 16 and 17 when they had us, so you know, we was exposed to an awful lot of things that 9 out of 10 kids wouldn't be exposed to. You know, there was violence and drug use and you know, like just everything you can imagine, like that would hinder a child's development for quite a long time in our childhood. So yeah, it was hard. As I say, we got all the love in the world, but yeah, it was definitely mentally hindering for our development growing up, that's for sure.
Okay, so obviously you got brought up in a household, obviously your dad was baptised.
Yeah.
He took his path with God, and then that then got passed down to the children. So where did you kind of, from having God in your life, where did you go down a path of separating yourself from him and going through like crime and obviously what you got up to in your younger years?
So obviously for me personally, I can't speak for my brother, but it was confusing because as much as we see obviously a massive change in my mum and dad. I mean, they went from drinking, doing drugs, and my dad was in and out of prison, to literally not drinking, no drugs, no TV, no Christmas tree, which obviously for us being youngsters, like, you know, it was a lot. But yeah, but at the same time, then there was still problems, and this is what I'll go on to talk about later on, why it was confusing for a child. There was still certain problems in the household and certain things that as a kid you think, oh, this should all stop now because you're a Christian, right? You should be the perfect human being, and then like it makes you question, is this God real? What is it? And so it was confusing times, but at the same time, as a kid, for me, I just wanted to play football. I just wanted to be out with my friends. So going to church on the Sunday, as much as I took all the information in, and it was still hard because I just couldn't wait to get out of there. And I just remember thinking really young, like as soon as I'm old enough to tell my mum and dad I'm not going, I ain't gonna go. And that probably came about 14 years old. And then it was like, I'm not going to church, because the church I grew up in was quite strict, very strict. It was, you couldn't have a television because that was a false idol, and you couldn't have a Christmas tree because that was a false idol. So a lot of things that my friends in school were talking about over the holiday period and things like that, or what programs they watched, me and my brother would get bullied for it because we wasn't involved and we didn't have a telly. So it was hard. So I mean, as much as it instilled the truth about Jesus Christ in me, it still was probably a resentful thing because it took away a lot of the things that we wanted, that our other friends had, that we couldn't get. So yeah, it was confusing, hard times.
Okay, and on that note, we're going to come to a cut because your wife is very unorganised and I haven't charged and it's going to die. So okay. We'll do a chick, and we'll be back. We'll be back. And we're back again.
We're back.
Take 10.
Apologies, my wife's not very organised. So.
It's alright, I've got it sorted now. It's on charge.
Camera weren't charged. But
right.
Here we go again.
Yeah, so here we go. Right, so you was talking previously about obviously resentment because
to the church, yeah.
To the church, because obviously you wasn't allowed things like TVs. Mm-hmm. Times was hard. Yeah. Blah blah blah. And then at what age did you get to where what changed from being a child in the church, following your path of God? At what age did something change?
Probably like because I was playing football from a young age. I was obsessed with it. Like you'd never see me without a ball in my hand. I was obsessed, and luckily enough, I managed to get scouted by Charlton, and and I got in the team in the academy, and and unfortunately I got injured, and I was kind of lost, like what I'm gonna do, you know, because for me it was like football and that's it. And that was my only way to success, my only way to monetary or material success, because as a kid that's all I was interested in, because I had such lack of it. And it's funny because this is what I was talking about. I did a testimony at my church, Icahn Community Church in East London, headed by Bishop Dr. Wayne Malcolm, and they asked me to do my testimony, and it was funny because obviously playing the football, obviously I was out of that and I didn't know where to go. So it's like, now I've realised, when I say about material success, that's all I was chasing. Was now I understand that that's not what life is about, but this is what the devil does when you're young. He gets our kids when they're young and uses all their insecurities against them, and you know, that shapes their future mentally, because without Jesus we ain't got no way of dealing with it. And there's a scripture in the Bible that says that Satan walks the earth, roams the earth, seeking who he may devour. And obviously kids are fickle, kids are easily led, kids are gullible. So I just thought I'd make that point on what I thought I wanted at the time, but it's obviously what was indoctrinated in me, where the devil see the weakness. So obviously I was chasing material success because it's something that my family never really had. So I was like, what do I do now? And obviously I started, my brother, to be fair, he started selling like crack cocaine and heroin. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that actually on here, but we might have to beat
Keep
that.
it real.
No, but YouTube, they censor a lot. He started selling crack and heroin, and he had a lot of money. So obviously he's my older brother, I looked up to him, and for me it was like, do you know what? Yeah, I'm done with this life. I've always, like, where's the next meal coming from? Like, where, you know, I love my fashion, I love nice things, and I'm like, nah, it's time to get them. And during this time as well, growing up in Peckham, I wasn't really accepted because I'm mixed race, white and black Caribbean, but because of the colour of my skin, a lot of people would, like, the black culture would call me white boy, and then the white culture wouldn't accept me because I've got black in me. So it was a very confusing time for me, and it made me extremely angry, extremely violent. So I was like, if I don't fit in anywhere, then they're gonna respect me. So I just thought, so I was already an angry, confused, trying to fit in, violent person. So I looked at it and I thought, who does well in the game of drug dealing? And it's the people that are respected. So that's when I took that route and thought, do you know what? I don't do things by halves. I'm going to be all in. If I'm in this game, I'm going to be top dog, and nothing's going to stand in my way. And that's where it started.
So what sort of things did you get up to? Like, what path did you take? How did you make your money? How did you try and get the acceptance that you was looking for?
So I started down the same path that my brother was in, selling. I went to County Lines. Anyone that don't know, that's like where you leave London, you go up to another county, like more north or south. But we went up to Bournemouth, so south down to Dorset. And we started, which is really sad, and this is obviously something that I'm not proud of, but that's where obviously the rehabs were. So we'd go down there, and people that are getting basically clean, we're then going and tempting them more with you know, better work, drugs they call work, and basically selling it up there. So I went down the same route that my brother went, and started with the crack and the heroin. And obviously for me at 16, 17, like, I made more money a day, like I just couldn't believe it. So that blinded me. Like, that's all I cared about, was I've gone from poverty to now I can buy what I want to a degree at that age. I could, you know, I had a nice car, I was buying Rolexes, you know, I had the best watches, the best clothes, everything I wanted at that age. So obviously from then on it was full systems go. And it was, after that, what's next? And then, yeah, so...
So when you're doing, obviously, what you was doing then, most people would know, I mean, if you lived in that sort of area or you are familiar with the things that you was doing, naturally, side by side, if you're doing that and going down that route, then obviously the violence comes in as well, because you can't be living that life. And, you know, because as we always say, there's always someone bigger, there's always someone badder, there's always consequences for what you're doing. So from doing that, where did you then lead to, obviously, like the violence and the respected part of what you speak about?
Yeah, so my thing as well, like, at the same time, where I come out of football, I had to be like involved in some sport, because I was a very sporty person, and just for my mental health, I needed to compete. Like, I needed to push my body to its limits. So I couldn't do the football anymore, but I managed, my leg managed to hold up with Muay Thai, kickboxing, which I excelled in. And so at the same time, I'm trying to pursue a career in the professional fight industry, which I was doing very well, but at the time I was involved in it, it's not as big as it is now. So the money wasn't great. But obviously what that gave me in the world I was in was extreme reputation, extreme power, because everybody knew most people were not going to fight me. So I already had that reputation with that. So it was just a case of people, you know, you start getting owed money, and you start, obviously it's one or the other. It's like, you're going to get owed money, you're going to let that go, you're not going to have a business. And I was always that guy that would just push things to the level, to the extreme, whether it be in a good way with my athleticism or my sporting life. It also was in every area of my life. So for me, it was like, I'm going to do things to make an impact, to make a reputation, to make people go, this guy's wild, like he's a crazy guy. And then obviously you'll be owed less money, people won't take the mick as much, etc. So that's what kind of started. Well, I was never a troublemaker, I wasn't brought up like that, I'm not a bully, but if it involved that life, then for me, nobody's innocent in that life. We're all walking on the same ground, we're all taking the same risks. So yeah, the violence just progressed, and it got worse, and the risks I was taking were getting worse. And obviously I won't go too much into detail, but yeah, it got pretty bad pretty quickly.
And when you was living that life and you was doing what you was doing, obviously, as we keep referring back to, you was raised in the church, you had your relationship with God. When you was doing them things, obviously we all know, we all have a conscience of what's good and what's right and what's wrong. Did you still have your relationship with God, or did you kind of like just put it to the side because you knew what you was doing was wrong?
So yeah, it's a mad one, because I would be going on moves, I'll be going on robberies, I'll be going on all sorts of criminal activities, but I would always pray and ask God to keep me safe, which is it's disrespectful on every level to God, obviously, but I still knew in my heart Jesus Christ was my Lord and Saviour. As much as I had the resent to the tradition of the religion, and I had, but I still knew that I went through far too many things where my peers were either dying or going to prison for life, or that I just seemed to, I paid my consequences, obviously we'll get to that, but I just feel like God had a covering over me that I didn't see my peers who was never baptized or anything that they had. So yeah, it's cheeky as it was, it's like I knew, and I always used to say to my friends and that, like, if I'd still speak to them about God now and then if they was interested, but obviously they're looking at me living my life and they're like, well, what, you think you're going to heaven? I'm like, but I was honest, I was like, right now, if God comes back, I'm gone, I'm in hell, and I know that. And I just obviously always used to struggle with, does God know that I'm going to come back to him one day full-heartedly? and he's going to keep me through what I'm living through, or is it going to end? But at that moment in time, I was just all systems go. Like, it is what it is. I've had enough of going through stuff that was out of my control as a child, and now I'm going to control my narrative. And that is where, that's what the devil wants us to think, is you're going to control your narrative. You can do everything yourself, and you can make it out of this and make it out of that. And that was my mindset at the time, is I'm going to control my narrative. And yeah, that.
But just a disclaimer, we don't go through life doing what we want, bad things, and expecting God to cover us.
That's not. So obviously that was it. I wasn't confused in the time when I'm saying, God, keep me through this, because I know that I have to pay my consequences for whatever I'm doing. But it was just because I knew he was real, and I knew I was letting him down and letting myself down. So yeah.
So did that life of crime end up catching up with you at some point?
Yeah, so pretty quickly. So the first time I went to prison was in France. That was eye-opening. I was caught smuggling weapons at the border. So it's something, that had been done a few times. There was good money in it. And then, one day, somebody had some intel. I got caught, and I faced a French prison, which was at 18 years old, which was, it was eye-opening.
And what was that experience like?
Yeah, it was hard. The system out there is very different. As we know, stereotypically, French ain't our favourite people, and as in they don't like us very much, and vice versa, being English in France. And so obviously from the word go, I think everyone, the officers, the judges, everyone would just felt personally disrespected that an Englishman come over to their country and tried to smuggle things back. So they was on me. Yeah, the treatment was pretty awful. The cell situation was different out there. You're in one cell, a bit like how you see America with the cells, and then you have the gated front, so there's no privacy, no door, and you're in there with like 7 other foreigners that have been caught. Yeah, it was in the middle of winter, freezing cold. The police used to play games with us, the screws. They'll get us up at 3 o'clock in the morning, drive us across Calais, go and have tea with their friends, and just leave you handcuffed to a bench. They
So how old was you? Did you say you was
18?
18. So then you done that. How long did you do there?
So I just did a couple of weeks there. Embassy got me out, and then I had to go back for a court date after that.
So you done your time in a French prison, then you come back to the UK.
Yeah.
Wasn't enough to put the spooks on you to stop what you was doing?
No, so it's a weird one, because obviously I'm over there and I'm like, right, God, if you get me out of this, I ain't ever doing it again. But then I'm also a person, like, I think I've got a gift, and my gift is like, I run into discomfort, into uncomfortable situations. If I fear something, I'll run at it head first, because I just know it gives you strength, it makes you grow. I've got a bravery that only it could be God given. So obviously now I know that He built that in me to use for His kingdom. But at the time it was like, yeah, that's cool. I've got out of this one. Now I'm going to take it to the next level. Was
it almost like a badge, like a trophy? Because obviously you're building your reputation. You're 18 years old. You're in that life, and it's like,
I think at that age, obviously you come from overseas, you come back to your family and your mates. You're like, I just did a bit of time in France, and it's like, it kind of just adds to your CV, I suppose, when you're that young and immature. And you think, this is like adding to my CV. It gives you, people are going to take you seriously more in that world, in that environment, because that's how delusional that world is that these are, instead of you going, oh, you might have worked for Halifax as a manager, that's great on your CV, but in this world, it's like, what you did time in a French prison, and then it's like it just adds to your reputation, etc. Yeah.
So what did you do when you came back? You got back to the UK, and then where did your path lead you when you got back?
So when I got back from the UK, I give up the smuggling the weapons, which tied me over for a time. It was good money, and I went into selling cocaine, like the powder form, the things that people use for parties rather than the hard stuff that what I was doing when I was 16. And I mean that from then I was like, yeah, right, this is it. I'm not here to be selling bits and bobs on the roads. I'm here to go all the way. Like I'm gonna be the distributor. So yeah, I got involved, and I started moving what the judge would describe as serious weight.
So you're doing that now. So you still have got your relationship with God, but you're still doing what you're doing.
Just to stop you there, I wouldn't say. I think I didn't have a relationship with God. I departed from Him, but He stayed with me. But yeah, I wouldn't say I had a relationship with God, because I don't believe if you have a relationship with God and you really know your God, that you could ever be involved in that on a daily basis. So yeah, I get what you're saying, but yeah, I didn't have a relationship with God. He never left me, but I departed from Him.
So when was your turning point? So you're involved in this life of crime and drugs, and when was the turning point for you where you was like, right, enough is enough now?
That come a few years ago. I mean, after France, I got my house got raided and I got arrested when I was 20, and I got caught with just under 2 kilos of cocaine, and I got arrested. Obviously, I was looking at 10 years, but with a lot of prayer from my family, the judge ended up giving me 6. So then I got a 6-year sentence. Then I went away, and you'd think that I would have learnt from that, but to be honest with you, in there I was very, very bitter. Like, I was a young boy. I had it all in my eyes with what all was. I had it all. I had the reputation as a young boy. Like, I was dealing with guys that are in their 40s. I'm only 21. I was way ahead of my years, maturity-wise, in the wrong way, I suppose, because I had to grow up fast from a kid. So I had money. I had it all, and that got taken. So I took it. No, didn't complain about it. If you can't do the time, don't do the crime. But when I was in there, I was seething inside, because I was like, when I get out, I'm gonna get it all back and then some. So I've finally got released. I've made better contacts in there, better connections, and I've come out and I've literally took it to a whole nother level. And in that time, I had shavings that were so close while I was on license that could have sent me back. And the judge said to me, whilst my family were there, if I see you before this courtroom again for the same crime, you would do a minimum of 12 years. So I went through situations in my license where the police had hold of me, and I've managed to get away. And obviously I've done my license, done everything. And then, I went on a good few years after that, still on the wrong path.
So you've done your time in the French prison, you've done time in UK prison. Was it just them 2 sentences that you had?
No, so further down the line, 2020, during COVID, I was apprehended on a driving offence, and I basically got caught, and the judge decided to put me in prison whilst during lockdown. So obviously I was unaware that there's lockdown in prison. So I went away for 5 months, but it was basically 24-hour bang up all day, every day, food getting delivered to your cell, etc. And at the same time I was fighting severe heart disease as well. So obviously my solicitor put in the argument that I'm high risk and I shouldn't be in a very high risk situation whilst COVID was going around, like in the prison. But they said, you know what, we've had enough. And they sent me there, and you know, the funny thing is, out of the little time in France, the 6-year sentence, and then this, so I was in Belmarsh for most of it. This was the hardest because you ain't got exercise, you ain't got none of that. It's just you in a cell on your own, losing weight, and your nutrition's terrible. And to be honest with you, that's when I picked up my Bible and I read the whole of the New Testament. So yeah, that I to be fair, until you asked me that, I totally forgot about that. That was a big turning point for me.
When did you find out you had heart disease?
So in 2016, I was on a holiday, a lad's holiday in Mexico, Cancun, for spring break. And I've gone out there, we've booked 11 nights, and it was just party. It was pure, just neat Belvedere vodka all day, every day, and amongst, you know, getting high and all of this stuff for 9 days straight. On the 9th day, I got in a bad way. Felt like I was gonna die. I rang my mum. Said, Mum, I'm not gonna make it back from here, because I couldn't explain the feeling, but I felt like I was gonna die. And this is after a good few years of partying, like just crazy party life. But on top of that, I'm still training like a machine to fight professionally. So my heart's just getting it both ways. So I'm extremely fit, and then I'm dealing with the nerves before I fight, and then on top of that, I'm partying like I'm Floyd Mayweather. I can imagine that was a lot for my heart. So I've come back, I've gone straight to the hospital, and the doctor found a murmur on my heart, and he said, and obviously I went for multiple tests, and he said, yeah, you've got mitral valve disease, and it's mild. You could live with it mild, but if it's acute, it would change rapidly. And sure enough, that's what it did.
So you got back into your Bible, you're in lockdown in prison. You've picked up your Bible and you started reading. So was that the turning point for you in your life where you thought, I can't go back to this no more, this isn't the life for me?
Do you know what happened before? So before I went to prison for the third time, and this was a year or two after I'd come out of the life of drugs and stuff, and I was starting to seek the Lord again, and I was in my Bible and I'm thinking I'm doing the right thing. So when they sent me to jail for that time, I did kind of have a little argument or conversation with God, and I was like, I've come full circle. I'm reading your word. I'm interested in it again. I'm starting to realize that only you can change my life around. I can't do it by myself. So adding that into the mix, on top of the fact that my heart disease was severe, I'm thinking, yeah, this is a lot. Like, I was a bit upset about it. I was a bit angry, and I'm thinking, but I had to be faithful, because at the same time as I was angry, I still sat there and I thought, my intelligent mind was telling me, God knows all things. He works everything out for the better. He doesn't do anything for worse for you. And if you're seeking him, he's not going to steer you wrong. So the reason I picked up my Bible even more in there was that, you know what? As hard as it was mentally, and that's the most part about it, it was mentally hard. And as hard as it was mentally hard being in that cell on your own 24 hours a day for months, I kind of just stayed steadfast in my faith and just knew that God's put me here for a reason, and I found that reason out.
Yeah, so that was going to be one of my next questions, was what turned you back to your faith? So do you think that God put you in that position because you wasn't learning before? It's almost kind of like,
Yeah, I think for the driving offence, as much as I come out of the serious crime, I was still taking silly risks, like driving like under the influence too much. And it's like, I found myself waking up the next day, looking at my car outside, can't remember how it got there. And it was like, once after I come out of that, and I thought to myself, you know what, once I started reading my word, it was like, God was saving me from something. God was saving me from hurting myself or hurting somebody else, which would have just been soul destroying, life destroying for multiple people involved. So I just realised that God was saving me from that. And then when I come out, I had a 3-year ban on top of my sentence, and I never got in a car again until my ban was finished and I got my license back. So it definitely taught me a lot, and I give gratitude to God for that, because if he didn't put me in that situation, or allow me to be in that situation, who knows what the worst outcome could be.
So you've done your 5 months in prison, solitary confinement. What happens now when you come out and you're free? You've read the Bible again, you're back in your word. Then what happens?
I tell you what, something that was, I just knew God is here for me. So I've been released during COVID, and I was released on tag. So I've gone to my house and the people have come to fit the tag, and I've sneezed whilst I was in the house and they was outside, and they've turned around and gone, no, we can't come in. So I'm saying to them, listen, I'm not got a flu, I just sneezed. I said, and this tag needs to go on, because if it don't go on, I'm going to get recalled and I'm not the problem. So they said, don't be silly, you're going to put a note in the book, you won't get recalled. As I said, are you sure? I documented it. He said, yeah. 2 days later, my mum phones me and she says, yeah, I've just had the police at the house for you, trying to recall you. So you can imagine now, I've just gone through that, I'm finally free, but on top of that, I'm now getting told they're bringing me back to jail, unjust. So God sank, which I know later to be God, sank inside me, said, you know what? You got to fight this, because it's real injustice. So to cut a long story short, I decided to not have myself in and get hold of my local MP. And anyway, she sent a letter to the Ministry of Justice. She was absolutely disgusted with it. And about 3 weeks later, I woke up to an email to say that my recall had been rescinded. Now, anybody that knows the justice system in this country, to get a recall rescinded is near impossible. So I woke up and that just let me know, do you know what, God is so real. And yeah, that was one of the big things for me, where I was like, do you know what? And I'll put prayer into that as well. And I know it wouldn't, the outcome wouldn't have been, if God didn't know I didn't learn my lesson, I don't think the outcome would have been like that.
So what happened then, fast forward into, you're now trying to go on the straight and narrow, you're trying to turn your back on the life that you had. Then what happens?
So I do that. I start, it's funny because I felt like the more I read my Bible and the more understanding I got and the closer I got with Christ, I started losing things around me, like people and material things. And there was a stage where I lost my house, I lost my car, I lost my finances, and and on top of that, my health at this point was in a severe way. So what was I at the time, 35. I've got severe heart disease, like a ticking time bomb. I've just lost everything in my life, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, God, you've got a plan, you've got a plan, you've got a plan. But this is going on for a year, and I'm like, God, you've got a plan, I'm keeping my faith. And yeah, so basically God just stripped me naked of everything that I thought was important in life. That he made me realise are just the things you should not be stressing about.
And do you want to fast forward to when you met me?
We'll get there.
So he stripped you of all your finances, he stripped you, how was you feeling at that time?
I felt, I mean, everybody that knows me knows, you know, when it comes to earning money, like I was a hustler. I did what I had to do to make sure that my kids were never in the position I was, and the fact that I've always been prided myself as a provider. I help everyone out. Anyone that needs help, I can help them in my family. I'm a giver. So at that point, I just felt useless as a man, worthless as a man, to be honest with you.
Did you ever question whether you was going down the right path? Because obviously living in the world and being worldly, like money, we all think money's important. We all think what we look like is important.
Yeah.
Driving the best car is important. Having designer stuff, having all the latest this and that. And obviously you got stripped away of having any of that.
Yeah.
But you was in your word and you was getting a better relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever question, is this right? Is this...
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I didn't. I wouldn't say I questioned it to the point where I was like, right, I'm going to go out there and go back to what I knew. But I definitely got to like 1 year and a half in, and I had stern conversations with God. I said, listen, I think I've been through enough now. I said, it's time. Like, it's time. Like, it's time to open doors. It's time. I'm ready for it. And then it carried on. But these are things you learn when you grow with God. And it's just so liberating and eye-opening. It's just the most fulfilling thing you can ever experience, is that your timing and God's timing is completely wrong. Completely different. And what I thought I had enough and I'd learned. And one thing it taught me was God is not going to give you what you cannot handle or what you're not ready for, or especially if you have not learnt your lessons from the things you keep doing that keep putting you in these dark situations. So there were times when I wouldn't say questioned if it's wrong, but there were times when my flesh got the better of me and I was like, F it. And I said to my mum, you know, I'm going back to what I do. And I was like, just stay steadfast. God knows what he's doing.
So you stay steadfast, you continued in your word, and then when did your life then change around from then? When did you kind of...
So I'd say I was stripped naked, and I use that term as in like stripped everything that I idolized, material things, money's, cars, you know, success in that way. Everything just think about it, it's crazy. I put my life on the line for this stuff. I put my freedom on the line for this stuff for over a decade of my adult life, all my adult life. And the whole time I didn't have my soul and I didn't have real life, eternal life. So so I had that for 3 years. And then I couldn't tell you exactly the moment of when it all changed around, but I just remember looking back and then me meeting my wife, which was probably the biggest thing. But obviously at the time I didn't know she was going to be my wife, but I met my wife, who we was together 19 years ago. And then when our separate ways, you know, always remembered her in my thoughts, etc. Then she's come out of the blue, and then within 2 months we're married. Then after that, we've got both the house we always wanted. Then we've got everything, like the nice cars and everything, but that's come with legally, with hard work and obviously with God blessing us. So I looked back in the last 6 months after we was married, 4 months, and I looked at the 3 years where God stripped me, and I was like, I could have jumped on the roof and told the world about how amazing God is, because how can you go from stripped, like you feel like that for 3 years, and then within 6 months God gives you most or all of your dreams you've wanted. You've wanted that family structure. You've wanted to be married in matrimony under God's law. You've wanted, you know, that support from your wife and the kids and just basically the whole house focusing on God. So, and then on top of that, my wife was into tarot cards and everything when I met her. And then within 5 months, she was baptized. And she's now a believer, and to be fair, I was very much, I've got my relationship with God, I'm in my word. Like, I'm not really one to go to church because, you know, I've got bad experiences and whatever. And she's the one who's like, when she give her life to Christ, I want to be in church. She said, I need to see it, I need to feel it. So she dragged me to church. And since then, our relationship, our family, our life has just gone from strength to strength. And so as much as God used me to lead her to Christ and away from black magic, God used her to bring me into the fellowship of the saints. And it says in the Bible, where 2 or 3 gather, that's where God's presence will be. And now it's like, never did I think I'll be a person who looks forward to going to church on a Sunday and this. now I'm just buzzing over it. So yeah, I think one of the biggest things God put in my life was obviously my wife and to ground me. Yeah. So.
Amen to that. So we've gone through your life story, what your childhood was like.
Some of it.
It's just a little thing. We haven't
surgery
surgery. No, we've gone through the hard. So you met your lovely wife.
Yeah.
Who changed your life? The wife that changed your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously in the short time that you've been married, I'm talking about myself as a third person, but we'll run with it. So got married, and then got everything that you wanted, the house, finances back in order, got your nice cars back, everything seems smooth, and then you get hit with the bomb of your heart disease has gone from moderate to severe, and then you get the call to say surgery is soon.
Yeah, I think living with that disease and the symptoms it comes with, like I've never been someone that struggles with anxiety because I've always been very run into uncomfortability, so it takes a lot to make me anxious. Then I started getting these symptoms of palpitations constantly and shortness of breath. Then that would lead me to be worrying, and then I'm constantly thinking I need to go to the hospital. And at first, my mum and my wife was like, "You're just having a panic attack." I'm like, "Are you mad?" I'm the bad man. I don't get panic attacks. You are wild. And, yeah, it turns out obviously it was anxiety, so it was affecting me in a real bad way. And then I'll get the call. Finally, they put me on the urgent list for this surgery. I'm going to these hospital appointments, and everybody in the room's 70 odd years old. I'm 37. I'm 36, 37. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I've gone through this as a child. I've put for myself through this as an adult. I mean, how much more can one person take, let alone someone who hasn't even lived half their life yet, God willing. So yeah, as it was coming up to the surgery, I was a bit apprehensive, and I think my wife, you'd describe it, I was angry when I think I was angry. I was very angry because the closer it got, and then they obviously told me 1 in 100 people die in this surgery. Obviously it's open heart surgery. It's very risky. They basically have to breathe for you. They basically turn your heart off, turn your lungs off, and do it all on a machine. So as we was getting closer to it, yeah, I was extremely angry. And then I got into the mindset of, do you know what? Maybe, I've come full circle to Christ. I'm going to heaven. Maybe this is his time to take me. Obviously, that's a morbid way of looking at things for some people, but for me it was like, this is a possibility, and I don't want anyone in my family to be shocked if it happens, because I like to get my mind straight on worst case scenario. So yeah, I was angry because I was like, I've gone through what I've gone through. I'm now in the happiest place I've ever been. In fact, it's the first time in my life I've been happy. I can generally say I've been happy. You might see me before and I'm like, yeah, I'm buzzing, I'm happy, because everything around me is validating the pain I'm going on inside. But when I could generally say that I've been happy was at this time of my life, and then I had this hurdle to get over. So yeah, it made me very frustrated and very angry.
So fast forward to day of surgery.
Yeah.
Obviously you go to the hospital, you're prepared, everyone's a mess around you, and you have got this like oddly weird, calming sensation that has come over you.
Yeah.
And we're almost like, no, be scared. What's wrong with you? Why are you not asking the questions? Why are you not, where's your anxiety gone? Why are you not having anxiety now? What came over you in the hospital that day when you was about to go down for your surgery?
Yeah, it was the wildest thing ever, because as I say, I was anxious leading up. You got to think, yeah, I'm walking into a surgery that not everybody makes it out of. It's what's the right word to use? It's the most serious, it's the biggest, it's the most dangerous surgery a human being can undertake. Even brain surgery, you're still alive, you're still breathing for yourself. Eye surgery, you're still awake. Like, we're talking about, they kill you, they cardiac arrest you, you are clinically dead while this is happening. So it's like walking into the unknown. It was like walking into, it's possible I die. And yeah, and then the day of the surgery, obviously my mum and my wife were with me, and I was obviously understandably nervous, scared, upset. And I woke up in the morning and I was thinking, right, these butterflies are going to hit me soon. I'm going to be in some serious nerves. And I had this overwhelming peace on me that I could not explain to anybody. I can't. And I was waiting. I kept saying to my wife and my mum, like, the nerve's going to hit me soon. The nerve's going to, and then we're an hour before surgery. The nerve's going to hit me soon. And I'm consoling them. And I didn't have one butterfly in my stomach, not an anxious feeling. I was just at complete peace. And it was like I felt God's presence walking with me at that day. It was just the most overwhelming, just beautiful thing I've ever experienced.
You did have a shower though before, didn't you?
Yeah, I had a shower before.
No.
I can't do anything.
No, because you prayed in the shower.
Yeah, I did. Oh yeah, of course. But I was praying non-stop.
I know you prayed non-stop, but
yeah,
you had like a real heartfelt...
real prayer in the shower. But even when I woke up, I didn't feel it. But yeah, it was just... It was I've been through so much stuff in my life, probably more stuff than 60 men's life, average men's lives, and I've experienced all sorts of things, everything you can imagine, and I've never felt what I felt that day in my life, and it can only be supernatural, and it can only come from the peace of Jesus Christ.
So the mitral valve disease that you had, a lot of people, I wasn't aware obviously until we went through it with you, but you can either have your valve repaired or replaced.
Yeah.
And obviously your consultation with your cardiologist, there's two different types of repairs that you can have done.
Yeah.
So they was talking to you about that because of the severity of your disease.
So they said my valve was quite a certain amount of percentage more complicated than most people with a mitral valve prolapse, and so they were giving me the option of, there is a high possibility we're going to try and repair it, as we do all, because if you repair it, you should have a natural life expectancy after. But if we have to change it to a tissue, an artificial valve or a mechanical valve, mechanical one has to be changed every 10 to 15 years, and you need to be on warfarin, which is a blood thinner, for the rest of your life. So you can't do combat sports. You get a knock, you might get internal bleeding. Nobody wants that. And the tissue valve would have to get changed every 5 years. So obviously I'm sitting there and going through all of these emotions, what I've been through the last 8 years since I've had the disease, and I'm thinking, I don't want none of them. I'm hoping they repair it, obviously, but I had to make a decision. I had to sign something to say if it happens during surgery, they have to do what they got to do. So I went with the mechanical valve because, as far as I'm concerned, going through what I went through every 5 years, that's no quality of life, because as soon as you get that done, for the next 5 years, you're going to be worrying, and that weren't for me. But the surgeon came and see me that morning. I was praying on his hands. I prayed that, God blesses him with steady hands and he does his best work, etc. And he's come to see me, and he said, we're going to try and fix it for you. And I shook his hand and I said, no, you're going to fix it because you're the best at what you do. And it was the funniest thing. Obviously, I wasn't around at this time. I was clinically dead. But I've woke up out of my induced coma, and that's obviously my mum and my wife were a mess, and they were crying and So obviously when I've come round the next day, they told me that surgery should have took 2 to 3 hours. 4 hours have gone past, they're getting no update. 5 hours have gone past, there's no update. 6 hours have gone past, there's no update. So they're obviously freaking out, they're thinking I've died, whatever. And then lo and behold, it turns out that basically that to get through my muscle, because we're going all the way through. I was going to say, because you're
6'3", 6 appeal.
6'3", just is still, yeah. But obviously I've been bodybuilding all my life. Don't look at me now, because obviously I'm not in the gym because I'm on medication. But I'll be back. So they just said that the tissue, my internal tissue was so dense that it basically took them another 3 hours to get through to the heart and do what they had to do. But they also, the maximum you can be on that heart and lung machine was 2 hours and 50 minutes. And when they showed the reports afterwards, I was on it for 2 hours 48 minutes. So it's like God just had his hand over me. So I also believe that the doctors or the surgeons took extra time to fix it because of everybody that was praying and actually repair it rather than change it. So yeah, it was a very hard time, very frustrating and angry time in my life. But also, you have to go through these things in order for God to show you need him, right? Because if your life, Satan will try, and a lot of people will have a comfortable life, so they don't feel like they need to search for anything else. But yeah, I just don't believe that I've been through what I've been through, done what I've done, to be wasted and not be shared, and for God to allow me to go through that and bring me to where I am today. I'm now been talking on the mic in church, which anybody that knows me is like, you know, I've fought for world titles, I've fought all around the world in front of thousands of people. You'll never get nerves like that, having to walk into a ring and be a gladiator and fight another human being that's been waiting there or training their whole life to beat you. But the biggest fear for me was getting on stage and talking in front of people, because I'm a guy that likes to just observe. But I overcome it, I did it. And my bishop and everyone's been saying it's a natural calling for you, and I'm up there feeling nervous as anything. So I just feel like God, like as much as I wanted to be making millions off of fighting, I did become world champion or whatever, but the money didn't come with it. And I now know that God was giving me that strength and that bravery in order to work for his kingdom. So yeah.
So looking back on all of your life, if you could give your younger self advice, what would it be? Or if you could give advice to, because obviously the world we live in now, children are under a lot of pressure growing up in the system. There's a lot of pressure with social media, in schools, all of the above. What advice would you give to the younger generation that are thinking about or are involved in the life that you was involved in going forward?
So what it's taught me is that
I've gone completely off scale here. I've thrown the questions out the book.
It's a good question, and it's just, all I can say is what it's taught me is that, you know, everything, 90%, 95% of what we see on our screens today, like, I don't blame the younger kids and when we was young, I don't blame them for thinking that that's what they need for validation, is the women or the guys or the fancy clothes and the car and the big house, and because that's what the devil is using our media for, is to grab our kids young and make us focus on all the wrong things. So it's like, I can only say that there's very few things that any of these young boys are going to go through that I have not been through, I have not done, I have not touched, you know, and I'm just a living testament. And there are many others like me as well, but I'm a living testament that I was like them kids, I was like you. Everything material mattered to me. That's what I thought would validate me, because I grew up in a community, I grew up in an environment that you are worth less. In the government's eyes, you're worth less. To people that, you know, are running this country, or to people that are in the better neighborhoods, that we are worth less to them, because we are put in society to make up the numbers and to do a job, and to do the jobs that the people with great educations want to dream of doing. So we're born into a society and environment where we're taught to be worth less, because it's a generational thing. Our parents are taught to be worth less and just not go and look over that fence. You just keep your margins here. And with that, it gives you a great desire and a great obsessiveness to go for the material things. And when you see a lot of these rappers today, and a lot of these artists, they're all talking about, I've made it, I got out of the ghetto, I bought my mum a house, I'm flying on a G4, because that is what we're taught. It's like, you get out of that, you've absolutely made it in life. And the truth is, that's not what makes you in life, because you can have all that, but what purpose are you living? Because all you're doing is indoctrinating the young kids to go and do the fast thing to get that. And nothing good comes of ill-gotten gains. Nothing good comes of preaching Satan's work. So what I'd say to you is, focus on your soul, put your faith in Christ. Christ said he will never leave you or forsake you. He will never see his children go without. He gives a sparrow so much splendor. How much more will he clothe us? How much more will he feed us? So if you put your trust in Christ, which is what I wished I did years ago, but at the same time, God knows all things, and I know that he's put me through that in order to use me to try and save a soul, save 2 souls, as many as we can. So I would just say, material things, you can't bring them to the grave with you. But I tell you what, you can go to the grave early seeking them material things. And what sort of purpose, what life is that for any of you kids or your family? So I'd say focus on Christ and he'll do the rest for you. Focus on loving your neighbour. Focus on trying to win souls, because we are living in the last days and God's kingdom is at hand. So that's what, I wish that I listened to when I was a younger man.
And so obviously we go to church pretty much every Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about the church you go
Yeah,
to?
so we go to church in East London. It's called Icahn Community Church. We have hubs all over the country. We've got one in East London, one in North London, one in Essex, one in Ashford, one in West London. It's run by Bishop Dr. Wayne Malcolm, who is an exceptional man of God. He has a true gift, a God-given gift. His knowledge of the Bible and the Word is impeccable. And do you know what? We're just a relaxed church. We're a real church. We're not trying to be holier than thou. And everyone turns up on a Sunday and pretends that their week's been amazing, because the reality of it is, guys, that do not believe in this religion factor where, oh, you're a Christian, oh my gosh, they swore they're a Christian. Oh, we are human beings, and Christ says our righteousness is a filthy rags before him, and that means that we can't do anything. We can't do no good to get to heaven because we're not good enough. He's done it for us by dying for us. And we're just a safe space, a safe community church. Everybody shares their testimony. Everybody's welcome. And yeah, if you've got any questions about it, just put a link in the comments or a comment, and I'll reply to it and give you some details. But yeah, great church, and it's a blessing to be involved in.
And on the final note, anything else you want to reflect on, or anything you want to say before we cut for the final time?
Like I said, just we are living in the last days, and God's kingdom is coming soon. And I always say to people, if you don't believe in Jesus, show them the devil. And you've only got to look at the music industry now. You've only got to look at the things that are happening with Diddy and all of these things to do with children and stuff like that. Like this is all biblical. It's all prophesied in the Bible. The last days will be like the days of Noah, and you've only just got to look up what the days of Noah were like. And for me, there's undeniable that evil is coming through in this world so strong, and we need a revival as the Christian church, and we need to stick together. We need to win souls, and we need people to know the truth is out there. So yeah, stay blessed. Thank you for watching.
Do your like, share and subscribe.
And
subscribe. Like and share.
So yeah, thanks for watching. Please do share, like, and comment if you want. And yeah, it's been an honour to share my testimony. There's plenty more, but obviously we can only upload so much at a time. But yeah,
You'll be back speaking about other topics.
We'll be talking about other topics, and yeah, just giving a daily word, daily encouragement, and let's help the channel grow for Christ. This isn't for me. It's not something I've ever been most comfortable doing, but I just feel if you've got a calling from Christ and you follow it, then everything pans out well. So thank you for watching, and take care.